Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Come hang with the Common Man at 5 Iron Golf in Minneapolis on February 6th. Join the official, unofficial ambassador for Minnesota Golf at 5 Iron's newest location in North Loop from 5 to 7 p.m. Check out their simulators where you can play iconic courses, enjoy chef-inspired dishes, craft cocktails, and enter to win great prizes. Get the full details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Second hour of the Bumper to Bumper program on this Monday. We are downtown Minneapolis at Target Center. If you're just joining us, Wolves on the Fan tonight. And so that's part of why we are here. We tend to do it when there is a home game on the flagship. And tonight the opponent is the fading Atlanta Hawks. They are also injury-riddled at this point, as we mentioned. And Trae Young is among the Atlanta players out. So, if you go by track record, then right now you're snarkily saying, yeah, this is the kind of game the Wolves lose. I'd still be surprised if they do, but that's sort of the reputation they're dealing with right now. Is it, can you just sort of put your head down low and take care of business? Any comments from the folks about the playoff games, the NFC and AFC title games? Please tweet me or at me, Dan Barrero, KFAN, to get your reaction to the matchup, officiating, replay, all that kind of good stuff, which we covered much earlier in the broadcast, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later as well. I do want to follow up on a couple of things that Johnny got into while you were having difficulty getting back into the cage.
It was quite a spectacle.
What you thought was the key, but then didn't always seem to be the key.
Yeah, I think it's the key.
But it is the key. You just apparently did not use enough elbow grease.
I need to get back to Lifetime.
That might be what the deal is.
Get the wrist going.
You have stronger looking arms than Jaden Daniels, but
yeah,
I'm guessing he probably still has stronger arms than you do.
Yeah, probably bigger hands, get better leverage on the key.
That's it.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Who did Brady talk about yesterday with small hands? It immediately, the small hands comment always brings me back to Dante, right?
It's Pep. It's always Pep.
It's always about Pep back in the day when we were measuring hand size, and that's why he's fumbling the ball. But who was it?
I don't remember
who it was. By the way, Brady, I gave a lot of love to Cousins in his guest appearance.
Yes.
Brady, I think, is getting better and better.
He met the moment.
I did. And I guess it's January. We shouldn't be surprised, right? This is when Brady's at his best. He does know how to peak.
He does.
At the right time. He is getting a little bit more fearless. I think he's figured out, okay, there's still ways. There he is. There's still ways we can get this thing done without me necessarily savaging players.
Right.
But he's getting more and more frontal. He's and analytical, I think, in a good way, in a way that is about a quarterback who kind of has been out there, right, from time to time.
Totally.
Because on Hurts, the big deal was, and he's right, what was the Hurts deal? Largely, here comes Johnny. The Hurts deal was get rid of the ball quickly while you're in the pocket. Don't wait 4 or 5 seconds because only bad things are going to happen. Trust your receivers. Get the ball out quickly. I thought for a while he was sending out a closed circuit to KOC, actually. But maybe he didn't really intend that. But I think he is improving. And, not surprisingly, it's probably going to take a minute even for him to figure the whole thing out, right? And what the parameters are and how can I bring some honesty without necessarily feeling that I'm turning on players, correct?
Well, and one thing that I think a lot of former players learn that I don't think people understand, when you get those jobs, I know some people, like Dan Patrick started a broadcasting school, right, where he trained people for play-by-play, and you can go to seminars that Fox has or the Big Ten Network has. They always try to train players on the fly, right? But no one really does tell you how to do the job.
No, that's right.
Of an analyst, or, you can for play-by-play.
You may get some tips, but it's not the same.
But it's not the same until you get in there, know how much time you have, know who you're working with, know what you're actually going to be able to see, if you're going to be able to formulate it. And so the first couple of weeks, and I get it, he's Tom Brady. They're paying him $375 million or something like that, right? It's an obscene amount of money per year. So there should be some pressure and some standards, but do we honestly think that Tom Brady's not going to get, like, knowing what we know about Tom Brady and his work ethic and his maniacal habits, do we really think he's just going to mail it in and not try to be the best at it? Now, I don't know if he'll ever get there, but I just thought it's a week after Labor Day. The season has barely even started, and we're just trashing this dude. Like, let's let him grow into the job. Now, in fairness to those people, the A crew is not where you should be growing into the job, right? Yeah. I mean, you should be working your way up, doing different games and things like that, but you're not going to get Tom Brady if you're going to put him on the Fox D crew and make him do a bunch of Sunday noon games against two bad teams. Brady ain't doing that.
Real world economics of it are what they are.
Yeah, so you have to live a little bit with his growing pains, and I agree with you. I think he did get better and better and better.
Well,
and not surprisingly.
But here's the X factor that I think it's more than that though, because you can be the hardest working person and not be able to master the art of the communicating and conveying what you need to convey. And that's not necessarily a rip. It's just some people have that, some don't.
Very true.
And I admit on the front end wondered, well, does he have that gene in him? I'm not sure, but he's showing it. I think there's no question. Now there's still some plays where you go, oh God, really? I'm happy for you. But I mean, how many? They're analyzing every play.
Yes,
so
right.
It's not surprising that you're not going to have a profound statement after every single play, and you're gonna go back in the direction of a cliche here or there.
Totally, everybody does
obvious stuff, but that happens.
Well, and his greatest strength is what you just said, or potential strength is that he's been in those situations more than anybody else in the history of the game. And Romo was big. The big new cliche, and KOC does it a lot though, is situational mastery, which basically means you know what the situation is and you play well, which is a game management thing or whatever. Nobody was better than that on the field than Brady, right? Every margin, they seemed to maximize it. But he knows, like, even one of the games, whoever made a mess of the timeouts, was it the Bears? Well, I know they did that a bunch. But there was
have to narrow it down.
There was a game where somebody completely made a mess of the clock and didn't use their timeouts, and Brady was on it immediately and said, they've got to call a timeout here. And here's what I did when I played. And that's the stuff you want, because that's the stuff regular people like me, we might know it, and everybody's an armchair quarterback with time management stuff, but he can actually tell you, this is what I did, this is why we did it, this is what they should do, and this all of that. That's the stuff you really need from him and want from him, and I think you're getting more of it.
Let's get to a couple of other items before we prepare for Alan Horton from the cage here at the bottom of the hour. 5 o'clock hour is wide open right now, right? No guests?
For now.
So at least for this moment. No Tim Conley. I'm hoping that once the ownership thing settles down, we'll have a chance to, really for the first time since the season began, catch up with him. Because I think the last time we had him on was before the season, wasn't it?
It was, right before.
It was post-ping pong invitational.
I thought it was pre-ping pong. I thought we were promoting the ping pong. Oh, no, you know what? You're right.
It was pre-ping pong. But that was before the season even began.
It was, yeah.
And obviously a lot has happened. So at some point, we'd love to get his views on exactly what's taking place. But that will not be, alas, the situation today, unfortunately. So let's stay on schedule. We will pause. I'll take a look at some of the tweets that are coming in. prepare for Alan Horton at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned.
And real quick, before we go to break, the fan wants to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword BILLS at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword BILLS. Enter it now at KFAN.com. Rock out with Shine Down at the Target Center. Experience an electrifying night of powerful performances and chart-topping hits on the Dance Kid Dance Tour on July 28th with special guests Bush and Morgan Wade. Get your tickets now and be part of an unforgettable concert experience. Get all of the details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
By the way, for the record, Washington did end up with 4 turnovers. Jeez. I forgot about that last one, which was very late, where the game was already pretty much determined. And, that's been sort of the hidden sneaky strength of Buffalo this year is I think the QB, Josh Allen threw 6 picks and had lost no fumbles. I mean, that's absurd.
That's
over
helpful.
The course of a 17-game regular season and then the postseason, too. But, and Mahomes gave up the ball once, if you'll recall. At least once, I think. I remember a fumble. But it continues to be the most boring stats often determine the difference between winning or losing. While you were figuring out the keys and talking to Marnie, Johnny and I were discussing the breakthrough, if it is that's what Wolves fans hope, of the Wolves' was a 30-point destruction of the Denver Nuggets. And can you draw from that any hope that this is like, we'll look back and say, well, here's where it kind of opened up. Here's the game where things started to click and we figured out a formula and we're going to have our first, we really haven't even had a legitimate winning streak this season.
No.
And as Johnny and I talked about, you have a soft section of the schedule right now for the next 6 games, 8 games actually, and you have to do something with those for sure if you're going to ever take off and give yourself a chance to get to a better record. But what struck me about what Johnny said was that despite the reputation, that overall, the number one culprit when it comes to explaining the inconsistency in his mind is not Julius Randle, but it's Rudy Gobert, who had a great game against Denver. He did take the matchup with Joker.
Yeah.
Because as you recall, in the playoffs and even last year in this season, they weren't matched up, right? That was Cat's job.
It was
largely.
Yeah.
So, in any case, Johnny, I think, gets Randall can make himself an easy target, and he fully grants that it's not a great fit, but he really thinks that this has more to do with whether you can get more consistency from Rudy. And what I worry about there is, I don't think we've seen Rudy have some offensive games before where he gets 15 or, he's like 6 for 6 from the floor and he even gets some assists going. And you go, that'd be great if we could bottle that. You're not going to bottle that. But what you should be able to bottle, as Johnny said, is really good defense and really good rebounding or decent rebounding pretty much every night. And we haven't had that all the time for Rudy. So despite the fact that the number one, like I said, target has been Randall, and he is at times, there's reasons for that. We shouldn't forget that the most obvious problem isn't always the most important challenge. And if you put this thing together, if you can become, again, a better defense, maybe not as good a defensive team as last year overall, but closer to that, Rudy's going to have to be the guy because Randall's not a great one-on-one defender. He can have moments. I mean, we don't have that many. I mean, we know who the great one-on-one defenders are in this team. And there aren't that many. There are several on the wing, but there aren't that many. And Rudy has to pretty much be the anchor. And it's a good reminder for even me, as frustrated as I get with Randall. It doesn't mean the fit's great, but we get those almost every night. There's video online. Here's 3 possessions where Randall just hangs around in the paint.
Did nothing.
Does nothing.
Lost
There's a perimeter guy, and the guy hits a 3-pointer.
Or here's 3 guys open, and Randall takes a bad shot.
And his 3-point shooting right now is awful.
Yep.
As well, that's another issue. But he is delivering. I've said this before. I think the best hope if you're stuck with Randall is make him as much of a point forward as you can. Emphasize to him, don't worry about scoring. The scoring will come. Just set other people up. that's the way he can be most effective on this team. But Rudy is, and I think reflexively, you and I have been in the camp historically that we've tended to want to defend Rudy from a lot of the national chatter, but that doesn't mean Rudy's perfect.
No, of course
not.
And
it doesn't mean Rudy this year has been the same Rudy that we saw a year ago, because he's not. My question to you is, how much of that, though, is related to, were they asking him because of the different role he's in and without Cat to do different things defensively? Is he more vulnerable in part because Randall is so in and out defensively? Is all of that contributing maybe to where Randall isn't quite, or I should say, Gobert isn't quite the same, weapon that he was a year ago defensively?
Well, that is where, we got a picture. Might as well point right at us. Thumbs up. It's all good. Yeah, no videos, no live. That is what I wonder, because there was an acclimation period the first year that he got here, because they were asking him to do something completely different defensively than he did at Utah, I think. I'm not a defensive coordinator. I'm not, Tom Thibodeau on the Doc Rivers staff. I don't know it, or Dwayne Casey on the Mavs staff when they won. But he was so good a year ago, and they were obviously so settled in. They had their roles. They had their rotations. I do think some of it has to be, he doesn't always know what other guys, and this includes Ant, by the way, off the ball defensively. Yeah. He doesn't always know. He's kind of supposed to be this savior sometimes. Just, Rudy's here, everything's just going to be fine, and everybody assumes it. I do think that messes with you a little bit. Now, does that excuse all of it? Probably not, because he's even had games where he has said, I wasn't where I needed to be tonight. I didn't have the right energy. I wasn't good. There are some times where he actually falls into some traps, I think, that other people do. Not as many. So I do wonder if all the unsettledness around him and inconsistency around him does mess with him. Now, that might just me being a Rudy apologist. I don't know. The offensive stuff, you're never going to bottle it up. Mostly because, as Mike Conley told us a couple of weeks ago, or told you, he's so reliant on other people when it comes to the offense, whether or not he's going to get it on some of the rolls, whether or not he's going to get it on some of the lobs. It's not just going to be, you're not going to have a 3-minute stretch where you can just say it's Rudy's turn to go now, like you can with Ant, or you can with Nas, or you can with Julius. He's so reliant on other people getting him the ball that I just don't think that's ever going to be. When he gets his 14 points and he gets a couple of dunks and he's at the line, and for the best part, good stretch of the year, he's been making his free throws, I think, at a better clip, which is good, because he ends up at the line a lot, especially in situations where the game seems to be in the balance. I don't know if you're ever going to bottle it up, but defensively, you'd like to see a little bit more consistency. The rebounding drop off has been, I think, dramatic, but that's why I do think it's not because he just forgot how to rebound or is a step slow than he was a year ago. I do think there's just some unsettledness on a night-to-night basis with what the defense is looking like.
We spent some time on sermons examining a quote from Mike Conley in the wake of the big victory, the rout of the Denver Nuggets. I don't know if you read it or if you saw it. I
probably saw it.
You probably saw it. I want to repeat it because it's insightful, but it's also, to me, again, sort of this odd indictment of this whole operation right now. Because the question was asked of Mike Conley, okay, how do you sustain this? Because we've seen the Wolves, maybe this was their best overall game of the year, but we've seen them have good games.
Sure.
Want to believe there's some kind of breakthrough, and then they go back in the other direction. So he was asked after the game, all right, so how do you sustain this? And Conley's reply was, number one, it's not getting bored of doing the right thing.
Right.
We've had spells where we do it for 4 or 5 possessions, and then we say, let's go isolation or let's try something else. No, just keep playing fast. Keep throwing the ball ahead, getting transition looks, just getting downhill and sharing the basketball. When we put energy to that side of the basketball, I think it bodes well for us. It nails it. It's I think, a good answer. It's an insightful answer, but it also kind of makes you shake your head.
Totally.
You go, why?
Yes.
Why should this be at this late date this complicated?
Because it's not. That is a sign of an immature team. And that's what we thought we got past a year ago. All the nonsense and the stuff that doesn't impact winning. And I've said it a couple of times this year. Even when they're playing really, really well, it always feels like they're 3 possessions away. 3 bad possessions away from the thing just spiraling. That's what when I'm watching the team, I'm like, they're playing great against good teams, especially against good teams. You're like, wow, they're really handing it to Memphis right now, or they're handing it to Oklahoma City. This is a good game. But then there's 3 possessions where they go sideways, and then it's like a long trip back to get it to the right spot. That, I think, is the same thing. They all of a sudden veer from what had been successful for them that night, and then the wheels come off, and then the NBA, especially in the West, there's dudes on every team that then all of a sudden go on a heater, and next thing you know, you're down by 6 and the game's over.
Close circuit to my hockey friends.
Uh-oh.
In the 5 o'clock hour, we will talk about a rather disastrous Hockey Day Minnesota. Now, the Wild did bounce back in a game that got way too, kind of Wolves-like almost, where you build the lead against an inferior team, the Blackhawks, who aren't paying any attention, and then suddenly you let them back in the game, and then you're holding on for dear life. So they did rebound from the last home loss previously, but we'll have plenty of time. We're wide open between 5 and 6:30, so there will be some hockey conversation for fallness then. Are you prepared to do a top 5 at 5?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. I want to be sure, because we could use that too. And maybe even a little Twins conversation before this program wraps up at 6:30. We are at Target Center, the Caged location, preparing for Wolves Atlanta Hawks game you can hear on the flagship, beginning with the pregame show at 6:45. And speaking of the Wolves, the radio voice of this club, Alan Horton, will join us from our very exclusive KFAN perch when we come back. Radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves. You will hear him tonight on the flagship as the Wolves take on the Atlanta Hawks. Kind enough to join us from our Target Center location. Alan Horton is back, and it's good to see you. It's been a while. We haven't been here much. We haven't been here at all, in part because, I don't know if you know this, the Vikings had a hell of a season. It ended rather rudely. Rather quickly. And then a couple of nights it made sense, like the Cat returns night. It was a late game, and so it just doesn't make that much sense to be here.
Yep.
So we thought it was about time, and hopefully we'll get to more of these. So thanks for stopping by to see us today.
Of course. Great to see you and JG, and there's still plenty of time left. Luckily, we have 82 of these, so it lasts a few months. And I got to give you some credit, Dan. I'm scrolling on Twitter on Friday. That was our first 2-day period between games in 5 weeks, so I had a little extra time, and I see a tweet of yours. And it says nothing. I can't remember how you phrased it, but something like "sniffing the tears." And I'm like,
"Oh yeah."
Like, what?
Driver's seat.
I'm like, "What is Dan sniffing? What is that?" I've never heard those words put together.
The tears,
before.
You're not.
Now I click on it and I see driver's seat. I'm like, "Wait, that rings a bell." Driver, And then I click on the video and I watched it like 3 straight times in a row. It was unbelievable. I had no idea. I've never heard "sniffing the tears" before.
You knew the song, but you didn't know the group.
Absolutely knew the song.
Well, there weren't a lot of other sniff songs.
No, and I think part of the reason might be, where's that manager to step in? Guys, we got something here with this song. Maybe we should do something. Hey, what do you guys think about changing the name of the band?
Yeah.
And I also noticed the lead singer in that. Boy, he doesn't bring a whole lot of personality on the stage. That might
not
be
a lot of presence.
They never kicked in because this guy looks like it looked like it was his last day on the job. Like he just couldn't wait to quit. I'm like, where is the energy, the personality? I need something for my lead singer.
I don't know anything about them in concert, so I have a hunch they weren't really very good in concert because you do that one song and then what do? Do you just keep doing longer versions of it? What else is there? I actually bought the album that was on back in the days of buying albums. I can't tell you I can remember any other songs, but that one, it is an iconic
song.
driver song. Obviously,
it's funny you say that because I took my daughter. She got we got her a phonograph for Christmas, and she likes it. And we went to a record store.
Yeah.
And we went to a record store. She'd never been to one, and then. What stunned me was that the prices of records these days they've gone up quite a bit since back in the day.
Yes, they have.
And I didn't realize that they still have current music. It's not as much. It's not as prevalent because you can get it digitally and everywhere. But they still make current music on records. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea. And they've got old cassette tapes. They've got old VHS, tapes as well. I mean, going way back.
Way back.
Great. It's really cool.
Do they have any 8-tracks?
I didn't see. Someone else asked me that. And I was like, no, I didn't see any 8-tracks. That was 70s, right?
Well, not only, and it was just a horrible. I think from the fidelity standpoint, it was awful.
Yeah.
And then it was so bad that if you had a long song, it would have to, like, in the middle of the song would fade, and then the track would change, and then it would start building again, which is really no way for any artist to have their song done, right?
Tough way to listen to Stairway to Heaven on
exactly
going in and out 4 times.
Exactly right. Well, there's
But great tweet, by the way. And then that guy, Music Jim 2, the number 2.
Yes.
I went back and scrolled for an hour. I'm watching all these old clips.
It is dangerous.
It is.
There are 2 or 3. There's his. There's a woman. I think hers is All America. In fact, she used to be a great high school basketball player in Indiana. And I don't know how they get access to what they get access to, but they seem to have the ability to find old music and individuals either in concert or even in a studio doing renditions of these famous songs. And once you go down the rabbit hole, I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
I'm going down it and enjoying the hell out of it. A song that I ordinarily wouldn't even spend any time on anymore, but because you see them performing it, you somehow seem to want to stay with it.
And I like the live versions, too. The live versions are always great because sometimes they're a little bit different.
Yes.
And, the riffs, Chicago was on there with that 25
to 6 to 4.
Yeah, what a great song that is.
Song. Yeah.
And I had a sort of different interpretation of what I thought Chicago was. I loved that song.
Well, that was early before they got a little bit softer, a little more
See, that's
poppy.
what I think of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the best, their guitarist, horrible shooting accident, killed himself accidentally with a gun, messing with a gun. Terry Kath.
Oh, he had the big solo in it.
Yes,
right?
and the whole band kind of, he was the edge, and they kind of changed at that point, unfortunately.
But I did notice, was it Sniffing the Tears?
Yes.
That one got pulled down. I don't know if we.
Oh, is that right?
May have broken some copyright laws or something like that.
Maybe
that was
these
my
guys
other thought,
don't.
How are they getting away posting the entire song?
I don't know. Well, maybe they got caught in that.
You ruined it for all the Sniffing the Tears fans, making it too big.
Unfortunately.
But it was great. So thank you. That thing was awesome, and it's great to go down that road.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let's also get to some Timberwolves, because we were talking about this a little bit with Johnny and you and I in the break, that everybody's looking for scheduling quirks, and the quirk right now is starting with tonight. You have a stretch of games that if you are going to finally get well above 500, give yourself a chance to do that, you're going to have to start winning 5 in a row, right? Or 6 out of 7, whatever. And this might well be the stretch that tells the tale, that if they can't do it over the next 8, then maybe it's not going to happen.
Yep, tonight would be 3 in a row, and it would get you 4 games over for the first time this season. And that's the Wolves have gotten there 7 other times, lost every time. So an excellent opportunity tonight with Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. Their two best players by far are out. And so this is a real opportunity to get that.
So you're calling it loser-proof tonight?
I would never go that far. I have
learned the hard way on that.
He's seen a lot.
I do think it's easy to look back and think back to years when this would happen. But I do think last year was different. I think
it was.
This year the losses haven't been necessarily because of that. I just think the Wolves have been really inconsistent. And depending on where they are in a particular week, they can beat anybody and they can lose to anybody. But then they go on the road. You mentioned it, at Phoenix, at Utah, back-to-back, and then you get 8 out of 10 at home. So you're right in this stretch here where you've got a chance to, and no matter how big over 500 you are, you got to think more standings-wise and get into that top 6 and threaten to get into that top 4. Then you're in really good shape.
You mentioned inconsistency. For you, obviously you see every game, do you believe that inconsistency is more likely or has been more likely to show up on the offensive end or the defensive end?
Boy, it's tough. It's tough to figure this team out because, as you know, I love the numbers and I love tracking where the offense is going, where the defense is going, and pegging kind of a number to give fans an idea of, hey, this is what you want to shoot for tonight. When the Wolves do this, then this happens. Then they win. If they don't, then they lose. It's been tough to peg this team. There's all sorts of numbers all over the place, offensively and defensively. But I do think one encouraging sign right now is that the offense is starting to get on track. You look at the numbers pre-Christmas, 23rd in offense. It was really a struggle. They've been 11th best since Christmas. And over the last 2.5 weeks, that number's jumped to 3rd best. That's a small sample size, but it's a start. And I think for this team, last year you could hang your hat in the defense. You knew the team was going to come out consistently almost every night and play at an elite level of defense, which gives you a great chance to win. This team is not that team. And I think as their offense goes, I think their defense gets better. I think the offense is maybe the more important end.
Interesting.
In reaching the final result you want to. And we saw that, we've seen that over the last couple of games when the offense is clicked in, when you're getting Mike Conley playing the last 2 games. You got Rudy playing like he did against Denver. And then, you got through that first quarter. The Wolves put up 40 points. That's the second 40-point quarter of the season. So it doesn't happen very often. And that was with Ant getting 2 points. Ant had 2. You've got great performances, Julius and Rudy. I don't think Mike took a shot. His 3 shots came a little bit later, but boy, talk about it being efficient and being impactful with those shots. And then Rob Dillingham off the bench, I think, had a big first quarter. So that was really encouraging that you can get those kind of big offensive 12-minute spans, and Ant had 2 points and then took off from there.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Johnny Krasinski. Once DiVincenzo comes back, and that's going to be a while, according to the reports, right? 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and then I guess even then he's just going to be reevaluated.
Yeah, it's just reevaluation at that
even
point.
without the surgery. Once he's back, is there still going to be room for Dillingham to be at least a factor?
I think there will be, because I think that Rob is going to play well enough that he will force the issue and that he will be a ninth man. If Dante comes back 100% and reclaims kind of the minutes, maybe even reclaims the starting spot that he had before, I think Rob will make enough of an impact that he's going to force the issue. And you hope that Josh Minot can do the same. I really root for those guys because I see how hard they work and they want the opportunity. And Rob's been bothered by the ankle injury too, which really threw a monkey wrench into the whole plans for him. But now he's getting his opportunity, and I think we've seen glimpses of it. He's got to continue to be consistent with it. But you see what he brings, and you guys touched on it. I mean, he's the one who's 103 mile an hour while everybody else is playing at a 90 mile an hour pace. It's jarring how quick he is on the floor, and it's a great different dynamic that he brings to the table.
Yeah, and I like I said, I think, Johnny mentioned that he believes Edwards likes playing with him and trusts him already.
Yeah.
Even if he's not, completely consistent. But that's part of what I like. I like the ball being out of Edwards' hands, and I like him learning to play off somebody else, knowing he's going to get the ball back, because we all know that nobody on this team can turn the corner, including, as far as I'm concerned, like Dillingham can when it's going good. And I think that can be helpful to get Edwards easier shots, right? We all are constantly clamoring for easier shots for Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. And when the offense is going like it is, that allows Ant less defenders in front of him. And when he does be off ball and can make some cuts and get some easy baskets, sometimes it's been such a struggle, and he's been scoring like crazy over this last month, like 32 points a game. And he's been doing it all, but it's nice to see him get an easy bucket once in a while, like a breakaway dunk. You're like, wow, that was the easiest bucket he's had all night, or a cut to the rim and he gets a lay-in. And I think when the offense is humming and you've got more confident and impactful players like Rudy or like Jaden, who's playing out of the corners really aggressively now, and the game is slowing down for those guys a little bit. And that just makes everything, I think, easier on the entire offense, including Ant, obviously.
So there was, I think the commissioner was asked basically whether, sort of the proverbial state of the league, the state of the basketball aesthetic right now, and whether there needed to be some tweaking the way that Major League Baseball did some tweaking, like shot clock or pitch clock and some other things, some good ideas, some kind of wacky ones. And he gave a long answer on it. But you see, it's your job to see every Wolves game, obviously, and you pay a lot of attention to the rest of the league. What is your view on sort of the aesthetics of the game? Is it a problem? Some people think it is, that the game has become too much about threes, even if, again, like with baseball, some of the analytics, there was a reason that teams went the way they did because it gave them the best chance to win.
Yeah.
So is the best chance to win necessarily the prettiest basketball right now in the NBA?
I think it all stems from probably the debate that started earlier this year about the ratings. And ratings, not just for basketball, but for, pick a sport other than the NFL, even for TV shows or movies, like everybody is grasping for viewers. And it's more difficult than ever to find them because we're so spread out in everything that we, whether it's not just cable anymore,
Sure.
It's not just over the air, it's all the apps and all the different places you can find things. So I think it stems from there. And then as you try to explain why there aren't as many viewers, even though I think the simple answer is that, like I just said, everybody's watching 100 different things at once. It's not like back in the 80s or 90s or even 2000s. We didn't have as many options. I think then that conversation turned to, well, it's, teams are just hoisting threes left and right. And you look at the Boston Celtics, they're shooting over 50 threes a game, and over half of their shots come from beyond the arc. The Wolves have kind of settled into sort of that 7-8 range as far as 3-point rate. So they're not about 46% of their shots are coming as threes. I don't mind it. I think as long as it's not just guys dribbling down and pulling up for threes, which it's not. It's run your offense. Can you find an open shot? And if it's a three, then that's analytically friendly. I mean, that's why teams do what they do, because the numbers tell them if you do this enough, you're going to come out ahead of your opponent. And so I don't know what you do about that. People talked about a 4-point line. I mean, that sounds gimmicky to me. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. The court's not wide enough for that. We already have a shorter three in the corner. But I don't have an answer as to how you would cut down on threes. I think there's still value in getting to the rim. I think there's still value. And I think things balance out too. Like if teams are just loading up on threes, well, then that's going to leave some advantages inside. It's always baffling to me when you have a post-up guy that might not be the greatest post-up. Nobody posts up anymore, but yet we run double teams at them. Oh, he kicks it out for a wide open three. That's much worse to give up than the post-up.
Right.
But if you don't double that, and you do have a good post-up player, like Julius Randle doesn't have a lot of post-ups, but he's really good at it. He's in the top 10 in efficiency in post-ups. That can be an advantage. So I think maybe it swings a little bit, but I don't know. Overall, I'm not really concerned about the aesthetics of the game. I think it's pretty good where it is.
You mentioned Randall, and that was part of the conversation with Johnny. He, many nights there are, you can find via X some isolated video that seems to indicate where is he defensively. It looks like he's lost, he's hanging in the lane, and then he's got to run back out for an open three. And it becomes an easy track then to go, well, the number one reason this team is sort of meandering is Randall. It's just not a good fit, blah, blah, blah. Johnny maintains, in his opinion, that consistency from Rudy is a bigger issue. That if he's ranking stuff, even if he acknowledges it's not a great fit with Randall compared to what Cat represented, that he thinks getting more consistent, certainly on the defensive end, what we expected to get from Rudy a year ago, is a far bigger issue, even if it's not as easy to isolate in terms of that video that we see many, many nights. Do you agree?
I think that I think that's one reason why I believe that the offense is crucial for this team, because I think when the offense is going, and Rudy's involved, and Julius is involved, and Jaden is involved, I think that translates to the defensive end. I think you see less possessions where guys fall asleep, or it's five guys on a string, and when one or two, especially Rudy, who's really the centerpiece of that because he's the guy defending the rim, he's the guy covering, he's the guy rotating. You have to have all of them together. So I think it is sort of all three of those guys that I mentioned who can, when it drifts offensively for the Wolves, lose focus at the other end of the floor. And Rudy was unbelievable the other night, especially because we've seen over the last couple of weeks some performances, especially against Memphis, where he had 4 rebounds in both of those games.
Right.
And 3 of those, of the 8 in those 2 games, were on the offensive glass. So he had 5 defensive rebounds. And, Chris Finch kind of called him out and said, hey, we need more. And Rudy knows that. And he said as much this past week. And then he comes out with that Denver performance. Now, can he back it up? Can he be more of that type of player than some of the nights we've seen earlier this season? Consistency is just the biggest thing. And as to why you have those kind of performances, that inconsistency, it's sometimes we never get a real answer to. It's human nature. There's a lot of things maybe going on in somebody's life that we don't know about that leads to an up and down performance. And it could be anybody. I'm not referencing just Rudy in that scenario, but I really do think it stems from the offensive end. I think Julius Randle can be a good fit, and we've seen it can be a good fit at times. It's just got to be that consistency.
I love him when he's in more of the point forward mode, where it's almost like you feel like he's worrying less about scoring because he's going to get baskets, and more about, because he's a good passer, getting other people involved. To me, that's your best shot with him, because it also keeps him extremely active.
He was crucial in the first quarter. They went right to him going against Russell Westbrook, and I thought it really set the tone for the whole night.
For sure. A quote we talked about yesterday on Sermons and today briefly with Guardsy earlier, and it came after the victory over Denver, and it was the $64,000 question: how do you sustain this? And Conley's answer, Mike Conley, number one, it's not getting bored of doing the right thing. So, again, you're around this team all the time. And you like to think we're past the point where we got to worry about that. Where you're shaking your head, well, why would you get bored about doing the right thing? That's what immature teams tend to do. So, do you agree with Conley? And secondly, why are we back to that play? It seems like, fit is challenging, and I get you make a big trade right before the training camp, and that can take time, and maybe it'll never work the same way. But why would we got enough veteran players, to me, like we shouldn't ever be bored of doing the right thing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know that I've seen the actual boredom that he's talking about, but that's something that you really appreciate about last year's squad, 56 wins. I mean, the consistency that they came out and played with, they were, once you get in that routine and you just learn to compete in practice and shoot around in games night in, night out, and it can be boring, but you learn to embrace it, and because it comes with the winning, then you want it more. And it's just, I think it's probably not a huge thing, but it's a little tweak. Whereas if you're winning some of those close games that the Wolves have lost, and they've been in an awful lot of tough of them, I wonder how Matt would have changed things, because then you're going to practice the next day, but you're coming off a win instead of a loss. Sure. And these things come down to a possession or two. But you have to embrace the day in, day out grind that it is. Yes, you're staying in nice hotels, you're flying first class on charters, but it's still a grind. And especially when you play 2 games in 10 days during the NBA Cup, which was a nice break. We had 8 days between games, and then all of a sudden you're playing 19 and 35. You don't have 2 straight home games in a 5-week span. You don't have 2 days off between games for a 5-week span. That is a grind. And there's 18 flights in there. People are getting sick. You're getting tired of each other. You're getting a little cranky on the road. We run into some travel issues where we're circling Dallas for about an hour and a half and have to go land in Oklahoma City, then get up again and circle around some more, and then finally land on the day before Christmas. So all those things kind of add up to the monotony of the season. And that's, I mean, in any sport, that's what coaches are trying to battle, right? They'd love to have practice every day, but their guys will revolt if you do that. You have to have that balance between getting rest physically and mentally, and it's an incredible grind.
Have a great call on the Fan tonight.
Thank you.
Good to see you as always, and we'll try not to be quite so distant as we get.
Absolutely,
because the Viking season, as you may know, is in the rearview mirror.
Yes,
postseason ended rather abruptly and rather rudely.
The Chiefs keep going on,
and the Chiefs keep going on and on. That's all they do.
Who are we rooting for? I mean, I don't like either team.
I'm actually rooting for the Chiefs of the two. But I don't have strong feelings. Guardsy wants them both to be. You wanted every player to die. You said. Well, no, that might be a bit excessive.
My 10-year-old did say he wants like 50 overtimes and essentially that for people to just fall over in a tie.
Exhaustion. Yeah.
I saw a lot of Minnesota fans, because of Kansas City yesterday, flip their commitment from anybody but the Eagles to, I got to cheer for Philly now. That's how annoyed they were with the Chiefs yesterday. I don't know if it was the calls or Kelsey taunting and not getting any flag or Taylor
I think that's
Swift.
Where I am. I think I'm rooting for the Eagles.
Really?
I
can't do it. But then I see a video today of this poor Commanders fan that's just trying to walk to his car, and Eagles fans are just enveloping him. They take his hat, they throw it.
Oh, man.
It's like, so I'm back on Kansas City by 1 million. And I don't feel great about it, but anybody but Philly.
Was there a video somewhere of an Eagles fan attempting to fly that went badly?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw. Yeah.
Someone also reportedly fired a gun into the air.
Oh, yeah, I saw
it's
that.
Like, you can't. I don't believe it's a good day to be agnostic or atheist, I should say.
Might be right.
There's no football gods that Philly just continues to get rewarded for this stuff.
That's true.
Have fun tonight, man. Good to see you.
Great to see you guys.
Alan Horton, radio voice of the Wolves, who can be heard on the Fan tonight, pregame 6:45. Opening tap just past 7 o'clock. The Atlanta Hawks, the opponent. Top 5 at 5 coming up with
the latest Jimmy Butler suspension and a big award for the state of basketball.
That's next.